Guys, Rockstar Games just released a bunch of high quality images of GTA 6, and we can really start to imagine what to expect from the game. In this video, I want to make several comments on the technical aspects of what we can expect from this fantastic game, okay? And I have to admit right off the bat that it's truly insane. Sometimes, here on YouTube, we use language like, oh, this is insane, this is fantastic, this is awesome. And honestly, this really is insane. It's fantastic. It's just awesome. You can check out all these images down below while waiting for GTA 6, along with my comments in this video. I want to thank all of my subscribers here on the channel. I'm at almost 60,000 subscribers. I'm about to hit that milestone now, that number, right? It's not exactly a goal. I've been making videos here on the channel about game development, mostly involving Unreal Engine, but the main focus I have for the channel is trying to understand how games are created. So the perspective I'll give here is how they achieved this result, what's behind it, and why I truly think what Rockstar Games does is insane. I've already made some videos here, okay, that you can look up, search for GTA, and then you'll see many of the comments I'm going to make here. But you might, with luck, be able to, broaden your perspective a bit if you don't have experience with game development based on the things I'm going to say. So anyway, I just picked a few images for us to look at here. In fact, I've already opened them, but I want to open the first one to make sure everything's right. This is the one. To start things off, my friends, why did I save this specific image right here? All the images I've seen of GTA so far, they really catch my attention because of how everything fits together, So usually you have several systems combined to work. I'll be talking about this throughout the video, and I'll even be quite repetitive, but take, for example, this scene here. The simple fact that someone placed this grass here on the side, I know, okay? Hold on! There are several cool images I'm going to show. This might seem really silly, but the simple fact of having these leaves here next to the grass like this, if you take that away, the street looks way too clean. So everything has to blend perfectly with the environment. And here we have the whole transportation system, right? With the vehicles and all, and there are several other details that we'll be following. Wait, let's take it step by step. Here, I saved this image because of its scale, in the sense that here you have different biomes. I've been testing PCG in Unreal Engine, which is procedural content generation, where you follow a series of rules to build your city. Actually, Unreal 6 brought an example. Well, they're showing. Unreal 6 isn't here yet, but it's coming next year. But they're already starting to show things from Unreal Engine 6 using this type of system. And for this right here, it's perfect, because then you can align things without having to fit things together like in the old days. You follow a series of rules. Game development before was you'd take a 3D item and put it there one by one, but not anymore. With this image, it's more than clear that this is impossible, because it's an entire city. And it's an entire city, Wow, just like it is in real life. They're really bringing the city to life. So to build these boundaries here, you need to work with splines, which are lines separated by segments with points where you can spawn things or modify the limits, and then with blends, in other words, matching these locations. If you look here in the bottom left, we have a biome, like a swamp, a marshland, that even has a boat here, it seems. We have an entire industrial area next to this part, right? So a not so luxurious area. And if you look in the distance, you'll see the cities. And here you can't see clearly if they're big or small cities, but this shows exactly this structure I'm talking about. And managing this in game development requires you to separate the map into layers and have them match up too. In the past, we had maps with, with lines like that from the 3D items that were placed by hand. Not today. This whole structure is made in a way that blends, and also so you can manage the instancing of things. So if you're gonna load a tree, you have to ensure that this loaded tree, the material you loaded for it, the next time you spawn that same tree, you have the previous reading. So you do the instancing and then you group it, you make rendering groups to reduce the draw calls, that is the GPU rendering calls. And this type of strategy, PCG, it allows for this. So instead of placing the tree there by hand, all nice and everything, you take this set of rules and set it to generate this whole scene. If you make a modification to the tree, you already have everything changed, the way it fits in. So it's fantastic to see this kind of thing. Besides, well, besides the show here, because these clouds with volumetric lighting, the fog, here we have a bit more of this atmosphere, this atmospheric fog. We also have the particles of the smoke. Here, man, at least here at first. At least the smoke particle doesn't draw that much attention. But again, I emphasize what I'm saying about the possibility of creating these things procedurally, where you modify a few little things, like some lines, some boundaries, and the map updates itself. Because otherwise you can't. Making this whole part of the farm, the house, in such a simple way, in such an automatic way. Game creation is still a very handcrafted process, make no mistake. I'm just saying that to build a dense map, you need to follow these rules. And man, when I look at this image, I think of the work it takes, for example, to make the fire system, because that in itself is already a game, right? The fire system, the fire is there, it's spreading, it can't spread to concrete, so it has to check the material type before it spreads. All of this is done in runtime while the game is running. And then you have other mechanics involved here again, like the airplane, day and night system, of course. Lots of details here. Well, this image is simply a massive flex. We have here, again, you'll see, they're really emphasizing this point. Animal life. So here we have the alligators with the herons. We have them flying too, of course. The police, all of this with particles spawning as they move and water deformation. Man, unbelievable to have this density of vegetation with water, reflections, plus other NPCs in a way, which are the artificial intelligence of these animals. I picked this image, of course, for the draw distance, how much of the city we can see from far away. Remember, in older games, you'll very easily notice the level of detail swap, the detail level of an item, if the item is still very far away. That way, you'll notice it's not the same item as when you're close. This tends to change here and has changed a lot in massive budget games. Highlight, of course, for the hair. Wow, the hair really has density. For the roughness maps here. So I'll show this in the images further ahead. There's an absurd highlight, the way they worked the roughness maps, because if you're not used to game development, I have a video here on the channel about textures, about materials. So textures form materials. So you have the color attribute. This color attribute is a texture. And then you have other layers like metallic, like ambient occlusion, roughness, and all of this is often packed into a single texture. And you separate the channels for optimization reasons. And that's what will tell the normal here too, how this reflecting light will make his skin look. So you have maps that tell you how the light will hit best here to give this effect a more natural look. There are also the facial deformations here. So when you do this, if you're older like me, you'll have these parts here, the crow's feet, which will only appear when you frown. When your face is normal, they're not there. And this here needs to be, it's often a mix of two things. The deformation of the character's mesh itself, but also, in many cases, this is used. The normal texture maps. They're those little blue maps, right, that you're already familiar with. And then you can do this with morph targets or blend shapes. It has a different name depending on what you use, but they're these vertex transformations saved in the character's mesh. We also have other details like here, the part of the veins, the hair here, the fuzz, right? Here on his hand too. Sensational, very, very cool. Each of these details. And of course here, the weapon's imperfections also appearing with roughness maps. I saved this one because, well, as I said, what's most absurd I see in GTA 6. From what we're seeing in the images and trailers, of course, there could be a downgrade and all. This was captured in the best conditions. But what really stands out is the amount of things working together. When you're creating anything in 3D, you add a tiny detail, create a new mechanic. This mechanic has to fit in with everything else. And here we see this most likely working very well. I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is proof of that, right? So it makes us quite confident to expect this. So here on the bottle, we have that water mechanic simulating inside the bottle. It's not exactly super hard to do, but it's very cool, including the bubbles, right? They're not simulations. It's not a simulation where the liquid is actually there, right? It's a matter of working the material's access and the effect, basically. It's not something simulated, real. We have the small details, like the particle, and like games. Game creation is extremely handcrafted, you know? So even when you create a set of rules, you still need to specify. Here, someone had to say, man, when the cigarette is going out, there'll be that. Or if it was for a cutscene, for a sequence, you need to stick it there, attach that particle to the cigarette. Several details in this scene too, but we have to move on. Sensational. And for maybe, if you were asking, man, but where does this guy, I have more. Where is this guy getting so many comments from? Where is he seeing these things? I have over 10 years of experience helping people, creating my own projects. And one thing I notice, usually when people aren't familiar with game development, is the impression that game development is you, all by yourself, creating everything from scratch. And when you look at an image like this, you have, if you stop and look closely, you see that it's impossible for you to create something like this, something even minimally complex. Why? Let's say you alone wanted to work just on this theme, right? And if it were a playable scene, you're controlling this iguana here. You'd have to model the iguana, texture the iguana, meaning give it color, then make the materials, the animations, control it, and you'd still be on the iguana, you see? So usually what happens in the gaming world, and what's very important for us to read the complexity and the absurdity that is GTA, is that you have specialties. So instead of going in like, oh, I'm going to create my own entire GTA, what's more expected is that you focus on skills to work for Rockstar Games, for big studios, or to work alone on very small projects. Because game creation is very complex. So if you get stuck on the iguana, man, you start to understand the complexity of this scene. From the guy riding the bike, the dog, the iguana, and each one has its own animation. Its own. And so that's game development, just as much as it is all the design folks who thought about what that boat sign up there would look like, the clothes this lady would be wearing, all the study behind it to ensure that this scene works the way it does here. And that's not the programming area. Most of the things you see here aren't programming. We have texturing, rigging, animation, the design part, research you have to do for the script, historical research. None of that is that classic vision of game development. Of course, there's still gonna be that programming part. But are you understanding the complexity? Why GTA draws so much attention and is so absurd? It's complicated. And here we have the marine life. And so, well, if you want to broaden your vision, of course, there's my course, which is at a friendly price here in the description and in the pinned comment for you to gradually expand your horizons. I'm already studying Unreal 6 stuff. I've already downloaded Unreal 6, which is a topic for another video, but Epic Games is updating the technologies that will be available for Unreal 6. And then, anyway, I'm already testing it, and I'll be able to bring a video here for you. Then we have here, folks, marine life, animal life at the bottom of the sea, which also contributes to what I said about how much they're hitting that note of like animals. I think this comes a lot from all the investment they made in Red Dead Redemption. And then there's another point that's important for us to see, which is when I say it's impossible to create a GTA, I'm talking about the level of expectation from Rockstar Games too. Because what we have to see is that GTA 6 itself hasn't been in development for 7 or 10 years, okay? It's been since Rockstar started making the first GTA. because of code reuse and the reuse of personnel training. So the people who were trained back then and who are still at the company, they already know the mindset. They've already trained many other people. Even if they leave, the training, the knowledge they acquired, they've passed it on. So all of this is Rockstar Games' intellectual property. And that's why other studios can only access a little bit more of the Rockstar way of doing things when other professionals leave Rockstar and go work for them. Because they have access inside to things that have been built over decades. So it's important to have that understanding. GTA 7, GTA 6, sorry, started in Red Dead Redemption 2. And GTA 7 also had its start, in a way, in GTA 6. Many other things, and all of them go back to the first GTA, without a doubt. And let's move on here. More of that detail of the roughness layer here, right? The veins. So we can expect that to be changed too. The sweat. The facial expressions. This is, again, like how much these guys want to reinforce that there will be movement, that there will be life. Here we have the particles and all, the fact that the character will most likely get dirty, according to the environments, of course. But there's a raccoon here. In other words, a raccoon. Why? Why is it in this scene like this? I don't know if this scene was just a capture, but if it was, that's it. And the guys want to give movement to the scene, give it life, make things, fit together. Life is random, and these random situations create a very great sense of immersion. So having this kind of thing is fantastic. Here's more that reinforces what I said about working the image, working the 3D scenery in a procedural way. I highly doubt this street is built without the possibility of you moving it a little or a lot to another side without it connecting with other things. Like a lot, okay? 99% chance that oh, I don't want this one. I want a straight line. Fine. You'll be able to trace this street through splines to make it straight because it's a game of a 2 billion proportion, man. The estimate of how much was invested. And if you notice the image here, what do we have? Wildlife. We have the birds. And here in the corner, is this an animal too? I don't think so. The capybara appears here. Or am I just seeing animals everywhere? But here in the bottom right corner, there's something you might not have seen, which is another feline. I don't know exactly what its name is, but it's a feline there in the image. Hiding away. What can I say? That's it. Wildlife at an absurd level. And notice how its paw here and the fur, they're being affected by the water in a very realistic way. And more. Forest, dense vegetation. And another image that shows a little more of what we can expect in terms of mechanics, that besides having this water simulation, entering the river and all, having gravity influencing it, which is what we'll have here in the kayak, you also have other things like most likely. And then it was because, man, look, there's a fox here out of nowhere. I've actually seen a fox once, man, in Canada. Very cool. I was having coffee with my girlfriend and suddenly a fox appeared like that in our backyard. It was really cool. And anyway, look, this here is a gauge, and it's common in rivers to show when there's going to be a flood. So this measures the level, the feet. They use this measurement in feet. They don't use meters. United States. Don't ask me why, but there must be a historical reason for it. And that was the last image I picked. Just kidding. There's even more. There are a few more images. Just before I continue with the next image, guys, I'm finishing up some parts of the course review. I'm studying Unreal 5.8 to bring things about Unreal 6, and I'm forming a group of people, okay? A premium mentorship, that is. A close mentorship. I'm going to follow up with these people, take them from point A to point B, then to point C during a period of time. Special access to me, conversation and all that. If you're interested, if you want to apply, I'll select people according to, their vision, what they need. The consulting form is right down here in the description. Well, let's move on to the next image. This one, man, I saved it simply because of the texture, you know? Because of the texture definition, and everywhere you look, it's just an absurd image with several absurd things happening, and you can reflect on it a lot. Of course, these are images designed to precisely strengthen that, right? So there are NPCs, it's high quality. I included this image mainly because of the character here, because of the amount of detail on an older character. So her skin's more wrinkled, she has spots on her skin. Here on her back, you can also see she's more wrinkled and all. So it's a detail, man, and very well done. I thought, of course, right? Anyway, there's nothing more to say. This other image is about the quantity and the challenge that GTA has ahead. I think it's one of the images that best shows the huge challenge of creating a GTA, because it has absolutely everything, like that initial image of the swamp. So there are NPCs interacting here. Just look. If you come here to the corner, there's a crime happening. Then you'll notice there are a lot of different NPCs scattered around in all sorts of random places, many of them just standing there on their phones. And you'll also see an absolutely insane variety of vehicles everywhere you look. Heavy traffic, very dense, something extremely challenging for you. It can consume a lot, man. You have traffic, it can consume a lot of your processor because you're putting tasks to be executed. And then that also requires a huge organization from the studio itself to design the graphics engine in a way that you access information from so many vehicles safely, so it doesn't cause problems like crashing or something like that. And there's also GPU access, right, man? And here in the background, we have the whole city. And I think it's the next image. Not yet. Well, here the insane amount that matches what I said about body types, right? So a very large number of body shapes. And if you notice, no joke, guys, like just look at the details here. Zooming in doesn't increase the image quality, unfortunately, but look at the details. Like, this woman's thigh is a bit different from this one, you know? Like, they worked very well on the issue of fat, cellulite, aging, and wrinkles. They're gonna work in an exquisite way, right? Look here. This guy has the upper part of his torso more sunburned. Man, this woman here is totally the Walking Dead. Holy cow. Wow, sensational. Here are the car details I caught. It might be just me, it might, but it's because, well, they're at the beach. So most likely, this detail here on the car gives the feeling, right? Of the fact that it's here at the beach in a humid environment and all. Well, this is an image that conveys exactly what I said. Look at this. The part here on the thighs with a bit more cellulite on this woman. This one with less. The details, look, of when it gets a little goosebumpy. There's also the sweat here, right? The roughness map, how that's worked in, sensational. I picked this city here because, well, if you look at games like Spider-Man, you'll see these buildings being made, these windows and such, in a simpler way. Here you're seeing, for example, that some have curtains, some have lights on, other curtains are closed. There, most of the buildings you walk by, from what I recall, are more like simplistic and all, right? And Spider-Man has a really, really cool city indeed. Those guys did something sensational. But here, I think it shows Rockstar's care in breaking it up a bit. If you don't put it in, if you're not careful to make things slightly random, it's very easy for you to look and realize it's something. His life is chaotic. So when they match them up, do this kind of thing here, this kind of detail, it makes every balcony on the buildings very different. That gives it this real sense of life. Very, very unbelievable. Let's go to the next one. Has it reached the end? Yeah, it's reached the end. Well, those were my comments on, like, if you want, on GTA 6. If you want to take a look at the images, the link will be here in the description. There are some absurd things. Absurd. Like a level that leaves you in shock. When I bring the When GTA 6 gets here, I'll bring several videos talking about the game, showing it in detail, commenting, but always on this point, right? On the technical aspect of how they might have reached this result, what I thought was cool and what wasn't. It's something I love to do, talking about this. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. Who knows, maybe I'll reach 60,000 subscribers with this video, I don't know. And thanks for watching this far. I hope you enjoyed it. Comment there what your expectations are regarding GTA 6, what you expect from this game that, man, I think it's safe to say it'll really be the most unbelievable game ever released in history. I say this like with absolute certainty, okay? With absolute certainty. You might not like GTA, but you have to recognize that. Thank you very much for watching until the end. We'll see each other very soon. A big hug. Bye. I'm out.